Okay, so when we left off the last time, we had gone over the polygon lasso tool, the lasso tool, the magic lasso tool, and the quick selection tool. Kind of discuss the different benefits of each. Now we have our rough selection. Now what we need to do is use the refined edge tool, which is probably one of the best advancements that Photoshop has created in the recent versions of Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. So we're going to be going into this refined edge. Any of the selection tools will have the refined edge as an option up at the top on the control panel. The only one that does not is if you were using the pen tool, which is considered a vector tool, so it's not going to have the refined edge. But once you make it an active selection, you can always go to select refined edge. And so any of these, you just need to have that selected. Even if you're in the black arrow tool, as long as it's still selected, you can go into select refined edge, and that's a fine way to do it. Now at this point you can have your view mode. Its default is to have it with a white background, so you're masking everything that you masked out will be white. You also can have an overlay if that works for you, just the marching ants. There's a number of different options. Black, whatever helps you see your selection better really is going to work best. And in most cases, I think on white will work really well. So the first area that you want to start off with is to choose your radius. You can do smart radius if you so wish. Here you can also zoom in, because right now I really can't see what I'm doing to my edge. I might not want to be in quite that close. I'd like to see a little bit more. So zoom out a touch. So we're going to do our smart radius. And you can kind of bring it up and bring it down, get a better idea of what you're doing. There's you can also show your radius to really see like what you're affecting, and then or show original too. Oops. So I'm going to bring it down to my radius and what I'm going to be affecting, like so. And click both of these off. And then I'm going to smooth that's a little bit too much. I'm going to do a very light smoothing on this. And you can get your visual feedback as well of what you're doing. Feathering, all of these I would keep on the low. Sometimes the contrast you can take up a little higher. Feathering, if you get too feathered, it's just going to look soft and unprofessional. You want it to look like it's naturally going to be in that space. So you really want to make sure that you do a good job with your initial selection. Now, if you're one of those people that always seem to be on the outside or inside of your selection, you can take it, your shifting edge down so it cuts further in, or if you're one that is always cutting in the inside, selecting on the inside, you might need to add a little bit. It's fine. I tend to be on the outside a touch, so I'm going to bring that in just maybe about 25%. Looks pretty good. You can also click on decontaminate colors, and that will help clean up the edge, color edge, and that gives you a certain amount, again, how much you want to decontaminate the edge and go out. Now this little tool here allows you to clean up your edge so I can paint in where I want to have a little heavier transition. And if you don't like what you did there, you can always erase. Erase what you've done. Erase any of your modifications. So this works fabulously for hair. So if you have little flyaways that you want to kind of, I think, no, the tail is on the inside, so I don't really have any little hairs. Like in here, might be able to paint that out where I made a mistake. So even if you didn't make it perfect in your selection, although I have to say making a good selection is always better than relying on this stuff, but you can fix it in this pretty well and with this panel. See, it doesn't want to take it all out. It still thinks that that area is part of the elephant. But I can go along here and paint, kind of cleaning up as we go. Again, this works really, really, really well with hair. So if you have the problem of the flyaways, this works fabulously. So now, how do we export this? From here, we've kept our radius, and let's just kind of review what we've done. Keeping your radius down somewhere in the 2.5 to 5 pixels, below 5 pixels is probably the best setting for that. Somewhere in your smoothing, you don't want to overly smooth most of your selections, but 8, 10 down is probably a good place to be. With feathering, I would keep it somewhere 1.7 and below. Contrast, again, that's going to be up to your kind of visual response that you get, as well as a shifting edge. That's going to depend on what type of selection you've created. Are you on the outside and you need to cut in a little bit? Are you cutting in too much and need a little on the outside? Decontaminate colors, again, helps with that. The colors that are kind of bleeding through on the edge, and you can change the amount for that. Now, from here, how do we output it? Do we want to output it, if we didn't have decontaminate layer colors selected, we could just have it as a selection or a layer mask. But since we have decontaminate colors used, clicked on, we no longer have those options. So we either need to go to a new layer with mask. So the new layer will just literally dump all of the pixels, but you'll have the original in a background layer that is shut off. With the new layer, you will have your original untouched. They'll create a new layer with a layer mask, so you're not deleting any pixels. With the new layer, you will. You can also do this to a new document or a new document with layer mask. So I am going to choose new layer with mask. That's typically the one that I use, and click OK. Now you can see what I mean. It has the background layer shut off, but it's still there if I'd like to turn it back on. And then I have my layer, now I have my layer with a mask. And with the mask, the wonderful thing about the layer mask, I'm going to pull my layer palette out so we can look. Oop, not there. I want it out. Here we go. There we go. So we can see the whole thing. The wonderful thing about a layer mask is all of the pixels stay intact. It's considered non-destructive. And if I still have further refinements that I would like to do, let's say I wanted to mask out a little bit more of this pump right there. I think it looks awkward for whatever reason. I want to get rid of it, or if there is some green that I missed, which I'm sure if we tootle around we'll find that. But here what I can do is, with the paintbrush tool, I can paint in, make sure, now look over here, it's very subtle. Right now what I have selected is this frame is around the image. So if I paint on here, I'm actually going to be modifying pixels, and I don't want to do that. I want to be working in my layer mask, so I need to click on the layer mask and make sure that the frame is around my layer mask. So with the blacks, I can paint in, oops, and it's white right now. So with white, thought I had black selected. With the white, what happens is I am revealing more of the background. So I'm actually erasing part of my mask. But all I can do here is I can switch my little icon and go to black, or I can double click and click on black, or type in #000 and click OK. You also can use the default colors. If you want to go back to default, you can hit the D key and it'll go to default, and the X key to flip the foreground and background color. So going to black, I'm going to go back and increase the size of this. And if you don't like your brush, like right now I'm using a specialty brush, and I just wanted to use a hard brush that's 8 pixels or maybe a little bit bigger than that, I can go in and just paint in the mask. So I can mask, and I mean that literally I can do something like that where I'm masking out some of the inside, but I'll edit, undo that, or hit Command Z or Control Z on the PC. But now I have a really wonderful selection to work from, one that's going to integrate well with a different background. But the next step we're going to look at is combining objects together. So we're going to make another quick selection of some butterfly wings in the next video.